At this time in our world, we are surrounded by violence. We are surrounded by conflict. It doesn't get anywhere. It just causes hate, breeds suffering, forces people into situations they don't want to deal with, that no human being should ever have to deal with. And I feel kind of preachy. I also feel hypocritical, which is, they're not feelings. They're not even pseudo feelings. They're false feelings. They're thoughts. I recognize myself as being hypocritical in representing a framework of communication known as nonviolent communication because I don't yet fully comprehend it, and I have not yet memorized even a fraction of all of the universal human needs and feelings, let alone the bodily experiences of what's alive in me when I express those things. There's been a pretty common theme in my life where I was surrounded by systems of dominance, control, punitive guidance, which is essentially punishment for not doing things exactly as they wish you to do them. My nervous system has pretty consistently been activated, bouncing back and forth between dorsal and sympathetic, fawning and reactive. Discomfort, injustice, fear, concern, ambition that cannot be reached under such restrictions, hope being totally diminished, if not smothered, by those systems. I've spent my life in facilities, CHD for 217 days. I was in a long-term psychiatric facility for about 16 months total, straight. And that's not including the periodic visits that would wind up being extra long because when you're under guardianship, it's required that paperwork go through for a petition, and that means that you're going to stay there more than just the week or two, sometimes months. I've spent about 80,000 hours in psychiatric facilities, group homes, treatment facilities, the like. Terrifying places. You can't really make those places comfortable for people. You can try to give them distractions. I, for instance, have a wealthy family. I had video games that distracted me. Didn't really want to be playing them, but I was playing them because it's better than the reality, right? Definitely better than what I was living through. I was constantly afraid of being integrated with communities that celebrated drug use, violence, for the sake of violence. I've been violent in my past. Violence is a form of communication, and I have been terrified in my past. I have been fearful. I have wanted to avoid things. I've wanted to run away from things. I've wanted to escape things. I've wanted to try and communicate things that were never being heard. And sometimes that dismissiveness and invalidation triggers a sense of, why aren't you listening to me? And that will slip people into patterns, especially once your sympathetic mode is activated. I think nonviolent communication is an essential framework for many, if not all, people to understand themselves. And that's the interesting thing, is that once we understand what our feelings and needs are, we understand what the strategies that we've built upon them do for us. For instance, if we I'm trying not to make this about sports because I really don't like the competition around sports. But that's a personal taste. I know there are many people who love sports, who love the camaraderie. I think there's healthier ways to connect and communicate. I think there's music, there's singing, there's gathering around a bonfire. There's dance, festivals, conventions, cosplay conventions even, but they're also celebrating violence in a lot of ways, and in a very capitalistic, consumerist sense. The Renfest, any gathering in which you all enjoy something together and experience something together doesn't need to be built in conflict against the other team. But let's say that we go to church. That's a religious thing. I'm about to sneeze. Anyway. Sorry. Nonviolent communication is a very important part of life. And I know that there are certain systems of punitive guidance, punishment, and behavioral correction around me that refuse to acknowledge its value. Literally refuse to acknowledge its value. It's been stated. I believe in it. I fundamentally believe in it. But what we do is always in service of needs and in response to feelings. If we play sports, it's collaborative, it's community built. We're meeting needs for, again, collaboration, community, all of our social needs. I suppose not necessarily our intimacy needs. The need for challenge, needs for connection, for personal achievement. These are very valid needs, and they can all be met individually in different ways. But when we compete, when we go into sports or whatever, that's really the needs that we're meeting. And some people can cling to the competition of it, even if it's subconscious. We're constantly driving ourselves towards it. We're literally activating our nervous system to force ourselves through and into beating the other guy. And that's harmful, I think, especially for certain people. I mean, there are many people in this world who don't yet have the cognitive framework to comprehend. Like myself with nonviolent communication, there are people who are built into societies that are basically founded on violence and competition, and they don't have the cognitive framework to consciously understand that, like, this isn't always a competition. And even in that competition, this is violence. And we're not celebrating beating people. We're celebrating accomplishing something. But it all gets muddied up because you're not constantly getting reminded this isn't about the fight. It's about the life. And I think that's why I see so many, perhaps, less more competition-oriented people in life. People who get triggered or respond with violence. People who push people away and avoid the conversation. People who choose to fight instead of understand. People who choose to dominate instead of connect. And there's a pretty common theme on all fronts. And that's competition and potentially military mentality. And that scares me. And I'm not afraid to say that I am afraid of that sort of person. I mean, I'd rather hide in a house and try to consume media on relationships and communication techniques than even integrate. I know this is it's not necessarily the greatest example, but I mean, like, I love an extremist lyric. If this is social, then I'm the antisocial. And through all of this, I'm explaining this and I'm constantly feeling shamed and punished. I'm shrinking into myself, avoiding access to this information because I'm afraid of being punished for speaking my mind, because that has happened many times in my life. As soon as I start to speak, I'm told to shut up. As soon as I start to explain something, as soon as I get to a feeling, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling scared. You're always scared. Man, this is frustrating. Why are you so angry? Of course, that's a rhetorical question. There's no desire for knowledge or understanding there. There's just shushing. And there's a lot of pain in me around all of that. There's a lot of shame in me even when I'm singing, which is crazy, man. Like, the second I start to feel as though I'm singing okay, I shut myself down. Because I, in the past, have been shamed for feeling good about certain things. Feeling joy, too much joy, too happy. I've also been shamed for feeling too sad. I've even been told to push through it and put on a happy face for people around me. I won't get into details about where or how, but I mean, honestly, the area in which I live now is a very significant source of a lot of that. And I'm trying to work through that as well. There are more than a handful of feelings. There are dozens. And there are more than a handful of needs. There are dozens to hundreds. And they're all universal. The moment we can confirm that each and every one of us is motivated by these needs, there are more added. We are motivated by needs for intimacy, for connection, for sustenance, food, water, or food and drink. We're motivated by needs for collaboration. We're motivated by needs for peace, solitude, needs for challenge and accomplishment.